August 21st, 1955. In the dead of the night, a group of 5 adults and 7 children arrived at the Hopkinsville police station in Kentucky, both frightened and anxious. In a panicked state, they told deputies about an alien battle they had been fighting for the last 4 hours. This is the story of the infamous Kelly Green Men case, one of the most influential alien encounters in American history, and the event responsible for the popularization of the notion that aliens were in fact little green men. Hopkinsville, Kentucky. In 1955, Hopkinsville was a small, rural town, and Kelly, Kentucky was more or less a patch of houses that sat on the side of the highway. These places haven't changed much in nearly 70 years, as acres and acres of flat farmland smother the area dotted with a few trees. One of the houses in Kelly was being rented by Mrs. Lankford, who happened to have her 3 sons, their wives, a family friend, and several children over for family supper on the night of August 21st, 1955. At 7 p.m. on that August night, family friend Billy Ray ventured out to the family's well for some water. Suddenly, a bright light flashed overhead in the sky. Billy Ray immediately identified it as a flying saucer and tracked its path until it seemed to land a few blocks away. Billy Ray herded the family and reported what he had seen. That's when the dog started barking. Shortly after, the family began to hear strange noises. Billy Ray and Lucky Sutton investigated. Revealing themselves behind cover were little creatures emerging from the trees. Naturally, the duo shot at the creatures, but soon found out that the bullets seemed to do no damage. Billy and Lucky freaked. They went through multiple boxes of ammunition trying to kill these creatures. They connected on a few shots, only to hear the sound of a tin can being struck, and no damage done to the creatures. As they moved to protect the rest of the family inside the house, the creatures began peering into the house's windows. Moving from one window to another, Billy and Lucky tried to shoot them whack-a-mole style. Over a dozen creatures attacked the house that night. When they finally got a good look at the aliens, they described them as 3 or 4 feet tall, with massive yellow eyes, human-like hands, antennas, and tiny useless legs. For some reason, the matriarch of the house, Mrs. Lankford, finally decided that the creatures weren't harming anyone, so they needed to report this to the police. And they did. After reporting the aliens to the local police, 4 city police officers, 5 state troopers, 3 deputy sheriffs, and 4 military police officers followed the family back home to investigate. The officers had to have been expecting a dangerous situation when they arrived, but instead, they found a quiet scene. Spent rounds of ammunition were found across the property, with window damage visible, but no sign of the creatures. The next morning, a couple of officers returned, only to find that the family had packed up and left in the middle of the night. The neighbors claimed they left because the aliens came back later. No shots had been fired during the second encounter, but there was supposedly more damage done by the creatures. So what did this family experience that night? An alien encounter? Or was it some sort of mass hallucination? Well, the UFO community claims this encounter is one of the most important and well-documented alien encounters we have. Others, so-called skeptics, have many questions. In 2005, to honor the 50th anniversary of the event, paranormal investigator Joe Nickel was hired to re-examine the case. He spent days thumbing through reports and articles and interviewing witnesses who were still alive. He then made notes of his questions. His first issue was with the bright light Billy Ray saw that night. He told the family that he had seen a shooting star while out to get water. It wasn't until later retellings by others that any mention of a flying saucer came up. Some neighbors reported seeing a fireball, which has for some reason always been used as corroboration for Billy Ray's flash of light. Fireball is an interesting way to report a flying saucer. We now know that the Kappa Cygnids meteor shower, a part of the larger Perseids meteor shower, was taking place during the night in question. Could the fireball have been the shooting star Billy saw? Most likely. So Billy Ray claimed to have seen a shooting star that night, which is most likely true because of the meteor showers that night, but it seems as if later tellings of the story have turned the shooting star into a full-blown flying saucer. The original report did not mention any sort of flying saucer. Many point to the involvement of the U.S. Air Force as proof that this was an alien encounter, but there's actually no proof that the Air Force investigated or even showed interest beyond a simple lecture on UFO hoaxes that included the Hopkinsville case. As Joe Nickell continued to re-examine the evidence of the case, he found much of the story had been exaggerated each time it would get retold. Articles and later retellings claimed the house was extensively damaged and that spent ammunition rounds covered the ground. But according to the official police reports, investigators only found one bullet hole in the house. One window screen had been destroyed by one .22 caliber bullet. No other shells, casings, or evidence of gunfire were found. One neighbor reported hearing shots, but instead of the barrage of fire that had been claimed, the neighbor only heard 4 shots in total. So did the family make the entire story up? No, at least not on purpose. Everything points to the family being 100% genuine when they reported and retold the story of what happened. Most people said that Lucky Sutton was someone who would never falsely report something. Suddenly, it was clear to Joe Nickell that there was a natural explanation for the strange encounter that August night. Owls. Yeah, Nickell concluded that the alien creatures claimed to have been seen that night were 2 great horned owls who were acting extremely aggressive. These owls stand about 3 or 4 feet tall and have been known to attack humans on multiple occasions. How could 2 owls seem like over a dozen aliens? Joe Nickell says that according to reports, the family only ever saw 2 creatures together at the same time. So to him, this naturally explains why the family thought they were being attacked by a dozen creatures, only for it to be 2 owls. The quick movements from different windows may have seemed like a dozen aliens, especially at night, but in reality, could have easily been achieved by 2 aggressive owls. Great horned owls are not only known for being aggressive, but they are known to actively hunt right after sunset, which would line up perfectly with the family's encounter and the general timeline. Even though Joe Nickell did investigate thoroughly, no substantial evidence was ever found to prove one theory over another. We don't know for sure what happened that night. Either a dozen alien creatures attacked a local family, or 2 horned owls did. What do you think? As news spread of this encounter, journalists were salivating to get even a shred of truth about the Kelly case. In being so desperate, many newspapers often exaggerated the events that took place. The first few accounts of the story claimed little men attacked the family that night, and eventually the phrase little men turned into little green men. And so the typical image of little green men as aliens first showed up in write-ups about this case, and is still the pop culture image of how we view aliens today. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe so I can bring you more Appalachian content.